Do we live in a world where justice prevails? Or are we doomed to suffer the sins of others even when we have not partaken in their wrongdoings? This is the question that often haunts the minds of philosophers and thinkers alike. Consider this scenario. A person commits a crime, perhaps something as heinous as murder. They are arrested, found guilty, and sent to prison. Justice served, right? But what about the criminal's family, his spouse, his children who had no hand in his crime yet must bear the brunt of his actions? The children might face ridicule and ostracism. The spouse may struggle to make ends meet. Their lives, once peaceful, are now marked by the scarlet letter of someone else's sin. This is a grim example of the ripple effects of one's actions, where innocent people are caught in the aftermath of a sin they didn't commit. It's a harsh reality of our world where the concept of justice seems distorted and skewed. But let's take this idea a step further. Picture a righteous man living in a small village with his family. He toils day in and day out, tending to his farm, treating others with kindness and harboring no ill will towards anyone. He is the epitome of a just individual, one who would expect, and rightfully so, a peaceful life. But what if this man's village, blessed with bountiful resources, catches the eye of a foreign power? What if the greed of this power leads to war, and in a single night of terror, the righteous man loses his family? He had no part in the conflict, yet he suffers the most profound loss. This situation represents another facet of the concept of justice, or rather the lack of it. Here, an innocent man is punished for sins he never committed, for a war he never wanted. It's a tragic embodiment of injustice, a testament to the world's inherent unfairness. So, we ask again, do we live in a world where justice prevails, or are we doomed to suffer the sins of others even when we have not partaken in their wrongdoings? Where lies the justice in such a world? Let's get back to the story of our righteous man who were living in a small village dedicated to a life of hard work and goodwill. A humble farmer, his hands etched with the lines of honest toil. His family, a beacon of love and unity, are his pride and joy. His wife, a woman of kindness and warmth, and his children, reflections of their father's virtue, complete this picture of tranquility. This man, our protagonist, lives by a simple code of ethics rooted in respect, compassion, and fairness. His days are filled with acts of kindness, small and large, that ripple through his village, spreading peace and goodwill. He harbors no ill will, no envy, no hostility towards his fellow villagers. His heart is a wellspring of love, his spirit a beacon of integrity. He seeks no reward for his righteousness, his actions born of a deep-seated belief in doing what is right because it is right. In a just world, such a man would live and die in peace, wouldn't he? But what if this peaceful village is located near a resource-rich region coveted by foreign powers? Let's imagine that scenario. A foreign power, driven by its own financial interest, decides to invade, taking possession of the fertile lands, the treasure trove of resources, and the peaceful lives of the villagers. War ensues, a war that the villagers did not ask for, a war that the righteous man could not comprehend. The once serene village turns into a battlefield, echoing with the sounds of gunfire and mortar shells, the air filled with the scent of fear and despair. One fateful night, a bombardment shakes the village, turning the once peaceful abode into a debris-ridden war zone. The righteous man, who had lived his life in harmony, loses his wife and children in the blink of an eye. His world shatters, his peace is obliterated, and his faith is put to the ultimate test. He was a man who had no part in the greed of others, a man who had lived his life in righteousness, and yet he was the one to suffer the harshest consequences. His life was turned upside down, not because of his own wrongdoings, but because of the sins committed by those with whom he had no interaction or interest. The man's life was not affected by his own actions, but by the actions of others, by the actions of those who wanted to control the resources beneath his village. He was a mere pawn in the grand scheme, a victim of the insatiable greed of the foreign powers. This brings us to a question that challenges our understanding of justice. If justice is supposed to be fair, to be impartial, to hold everyone accountable for their own actions, then where is the justice for this man? Where is the justice for the righteous man who had lived his life in harmony, who had done no wrong, but was made to suffer the consequences of others' greed? Where is the justice for the righteous man who lost everything? Fast forward 30 years, the righteous man, now old and alone, sees death as a gift. He's been living with a heavy heart, a constant reminder of the tragedy that befell him. His faith, once a beacon of hope, now lies in tatters. He's been grappling with a question that gnaws at his soul. How could a just God allow such profound injustice? The righteous man had always believed in a world guided by a just God, a world where good deeds were rewarded and sins were punished. But the harsh reality of his life told a different story. He had been righteous, kind, and hard-working, yet he was made to endure unbearable pain. His innocent wife and children, who had done no wrong, were taken from him in the most horrific way. This stark contrast between his belief in a just God and the reality of his life led to a profound dilemma. He was torn between two painful alternatives. On one hand, he could accept that God, despite being omnipotent and omniscient, allowed such heart-wrenching injustice. This would imply that God was not just, a thought he found deeply unsettling. On the other hand, he could deny the existence of God altogether. This was an equally distressing option. To deny God was to deny a fundamental part of himself, his identity. It was to strip life of its meaning and purpose. But it was also the only way he could reconcile the horror of his life with his belief in a just world. So he made a choice that was as heartbreaking as it was inevitable. He chose to deny God's existence. In doing so, he preserved the sanctity and righteousness of the divine by sacrificing his own faith. He chose to endure the pain of disbelief over accepting an unjust God. In preserving the holiness of the Almighty, the righteous man condemned himself to a life of disbelief. Is this the price of justice in our world? The question lingers, echoing in the silence, a stark reminder of the righteous man's dilemma and the world's inherent injustice.